I am Erin Patton, metaphysical master in a millennial age, and it is my life's purpose to guide you and organizations along an enlightened path. So I invite you to sit comfortably and tune in as I welcome you to the Meta Business Millennial, where we get the real conversations you won't get in the boardroom so that we understand this is exactly the path we need to be on in order to grow, evolve, and thrive. Greetings, welcome to the Meta Business Millennial Podcast. I am Erin Patton, and I am here with a special guest that I am so excited to introduce you all to. It's been a little while since I've had the show. I took maybe about a month break in between, which is crazy because I've been going every week for the past 2-3 years, and it's just amazing that I haven't allowed myself time to rest, which is really, I believe, just a signal from God, from the universe for all of us. And I really wanted to bring in Crystal today to talk about her journey with going hard, overachieving, all the things, and even bring in some insights for you all to learn from her and her work. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guest, Ms. Crystal.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about, I guess, my backstory
Yes.
and the work that I do currently and what led me to this work and just life.
I love that. And for all of you who are new tuning in, I am Erin Patton across social media. Certainly like this video, subscribe to my channel, and certainly share this message with a friend if you feel so called. And I'm just going to jump right in because I know a lot of people right now are feeling pressure, and you know, us included, and we are light workers, we are healers, we are, you know, pushing through life as best as we can, and it's still challenging for us. And I really want to lift up your background as a marathon runner, as an educated woman. I would love for you to talk a lot about kind of that journey and how that's gotten you to now.
Ooh, okay. Well, I always tell people my story has always been about endurance.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the kind that win medals running marathons, right?
Yes.
I'm talking about the endurance that it takes to show up when life feels heavy. The endurance it takes when my body decided it was tired, and I went from being, you know, partially paralyzed to dealing with an autoimmune diagnosis, and just the endurance when your spirit is running literally on fumes.
Right.
And so that's literally been just the definition and kind of just the theme of my life. Has been just this endurance. I spent, like you said, I've run marathons, training for my first ultra marathon. I've spent years helping organizations raise dollars and open doors for possibilities to do the work that they do. And on the outside, I always tell people it looks like I am thriving, right?
Yeah, as it always does.
The career, the accomplishments, the impact that the work that I do have, but behind the scenes, there have been many of occasions where I was running empty. My worth was really, I would say, you know, I used to tie my worth to output. And I think that's where a lot of struggle come on, you know, because you run a marathon, at the end, you get a prize, you get a medal, right? You know, so like you work hard, you make money, right? You know, telling organizations, the more you churn, the more dollars you raise, right? So my worth have always been tied to an outcome. And I tell people, and that made my calendar never have space for me. But you know, what happened is one day I realized that I was living and had normalized burnout. I was pouring into everyone else's vision except my own. As an ultra marathon runner, I knew I could push through pain, so I did, both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I normalized pushing through pain. But you can't, and pun intended, outrun exhaustion forever. You cannot outrun it forever. And so I got into this space of remembering, like in the thought, like if I keep living like this, I'm going to lose myself completely, and that may even be physical death, because it was just like, you show up, you post the pictures on Instagram, LinkedIn, and you're doing the things and you're checking off the checklist. But you can't continue to churn like that, because eventually, if you run, it's like running a car and you see that check light in the engine check light go on, but I'm gonna push it a little bit forward. Or your gas is on empty. That light come on and you was like, how many more miles can I get before I stop to get gas? And I knew eventually that, this vehicle of mine, this body of mine was gonna run out of gas. The engine oil had burnt out, and had to find a different way to not only approach life, but also approach the work that I did. And so that's kind of what landed me into where I am today, in the space that I'm in today. Just like really birthing a new way of doing the work and actually living life. And I always tell people I call it living life by design and on purpose. And so that's exactly what I'm doing now.
I love it. So much of your story resonates with me, and I'm sure it resonates with so many of our listeners, specifically our women entrepreneur listeners, because we derive so much of our worth and our value from what others can see. Mm-hmm. And not even what we can see, because we see ourselves putting in the work. We see ourselves waking up early, eating right, doing all the things, but it's not necessarily valuable to us. It's really what the external world can appreciate us for. And, it resonates with me because this was my path up until damn near like now, where I've gotten to the place where it's just like, if anyone can say anything about me, I know myself and my values so deeply that it doesn't even matter. Yeah. But then there are those times when, because of our programming, because of our, us doing this for so long, the habit of overworking, I still have to be reminded to Aaron, sit down. Aaron, this time is for you. Aaron, take a break. And that part, I believe, is what is difficult for so many people, because in that resting, there is a guilt. There is, you're lazy, or I feel lazy, or I'm not being productive, or there's more to be done. And there's constantly kind of like that, that nagging energy or thoughts. And so I really want you to speak to how you've been able to cultivate more of that restful language for yourself, that, do less, energy. And this is essentially what I believe more of this feminine movement is coming about, whether it be in business or just in women in general. How to be more intuitive, how to sit still, how to say less, how to be softer. Everyone wants to be soft and demure, but that takes work. So I really want to hear how that journey has been for you.
My first step is I literally took a page book out of, like, when I see people for nutrition consultations, the first thing I do is an assessment. When I have an organization that I work with, the first thing I did was assessment, right? So I looked at, okay, what if, what would it look like if I did a self-assessment on my life? I began to strip back everything, and just take an assessment and ask myself, what would it look like to build a life that I don't have to recover from? Because that's what I was doing. I was working hard, and then I took the vacation. I did the wellness retreats, but I didn't take the time off or go on the wellness retreats or go on vacation. I realized I was starting vacation at burnout. And so you don't really get a chance to, I tell people, just like when your body is under stress, it does absorb nutrients. It's the same thing with our body when it comes to rest. Like your body can even absorb the benefits of a vacation if you're entering into a burnout state. That's just facts. Like you just taking a couple of days off. So you can't even receive the benefits of that wellness retreat. So I was like, how can I build my life? Like, so I'm gonna do an assessment and just really like we do our businesses. Like what's your strategic plan? Like, but what's my strategic plan for my life? Like, what does that look like? And out of that question, I really built a framework that I use in my work. I use it in my life. And, this framework I use with clients, how to better operate their businesses and their lives. But this is what I use for myself. And I've been able to integrate purpose first, because everything you do has to have a purpose. Otherwise, you don't need to be doing it. Wellness, but also, performance. I am a high performer. But high performer doesn't mean that you have to overperform. And that's what I had to just really reassess my relationship with performance. Because it was I had a toxic relationship with performance. I was overperforming. So just like, how can I be more intimate with this word performance, and approach it very differently, without sacrificing myself in the process. And so I use this now as the guide of how I live my life day to day. I do little, the Atomic Habit books, they always say, do little small things to build the big stuff. Yeah. And so I was like, what are these small things that I can do? And I started off with just 15 minutes and I've worked my way up to 90 minutes now. The first 90 minutes and the last 90 minutes of my day are for me.
Yeah.
I'm not picking up my phone. Because I realize that there are 8+ hours in a day that I'm giving myself to others. So how can I reclaim space for myself at the beginning of my day and at the end of my day? So just, really figuring out like, how can I stack these healthier habits, to where I don't need to take the 4-day wellness retreat. I want to take the 4-day wellness retreat. Right. So really just approaching life very differently and actually creating this wellness retreat space and integrating that work into my day-to-day life. Yes. Of like, how can I take elements of what I've done in these 4 days, but how can I incorporate that and integrate the certain elements in my everyday life? And that's what I've done. And it still allows me to perform at a high level, and get work done and be successful. But I tell people, it's a funny term, it's a work hard, play harder. I was like, that's what I do now. Like, yeah. Like if I'm doing X amount of hours where I'm going in, I'm going to figure out how can I maximize and double that time and rest.
I love that.
So, yeah.
I love that. And so what I'm hearing here is the intentionality in creating this space, the scheduling, the prioritizing, and that fundamentally is what makes the shift. And I love that you use the word like habit stacking, because I feel like this is something that's kind of trending a lot, particularly with the Atomic Habits book. And being able to just start doing one thing for 21 days, 30 days, 90 days, and then adding another thing for 21 days, 30, and however many days you can consistently do that thing until over time, like, of course, maybe years it takes to really shift your behavior. And I want to reiterate to those out there that are getting inspired by this to really be kind to yourself in the process, because I, for one, am someone who am very intense. And when I want something, I like go after it. Like you said, like performance, toxic relationship. And so, and also a relationship with perfectionism and just wanting to be perfect. So if I try to do something and then I slip off of it, like, then, that makes, I kind of have like the guilt associated with it, or the shame. So those kind of feelings come back. But what we have to really recognize is the emotional ties that we have to these habits, and that it takes time to clear these as well. Because it's not just the physical act of the things we're doing, it's how these things make us feel. And so that's kind of the challenge, particularly with people trying to get rid of like smoking or drinking or really toxic habits, because they haven't really found a better alternative.
Yes.
to make them feel that way. And so that is really why I say you have to be kind and patient with yourself, because right now, the way our society is set up, there aren't too many better alternatives to how we've been taught to party, for
Yes.
example. And so partying looks like drinking, party, staying up late, smoking, doing all very toxic, eating bad foods, like going out to eat. Like, it's really not aligned with higher, healthier behaviors.
Yeah.
And so we really have to trust ourselves and where we're going and our vision for what we want. And so I really want you to speak to that, particularly for people who are wanting to, get to that higher place, how they can really, align or work on that emotional kind of dependency, if you will, to some of these habits. I think that's a really good one.
Yeah, and that goes back to the assessment part, right? When you're doing your assessment, you have to really look at, like, for me, it was like, okay, Crystal, you spent 40 years with a toxic relationship with performance. Let's be real. Like, I was the good little girl who did everything. I wanted to make my parents happy and proud. I wanted to get, in my elementary school, they had like sparklegrams, because if you made all A's or had good conduct, I've mastered this since a child, right? Like this perfectionism. And so I had to be honest with myself, like, give yourself grace, because you spent 40 years in this space. In 40 days, it's not going to change. Like, that's not being fair. It's not being fair. That behavior is not going to change in 40 days.
Right.
So I had to be fair with myself. Like, and honestly, I started at 40, like, okay, I have to change. This year I'll be 47. And so I'm just now finding this pace and this rhythm to get it right.
Yeah.
So it takes time. I didn't master it. And that's why I really hate the whole, like, when they have like these challenges, like 75 hard, like you're not going to make your life change in 75 days if you have spent 75 months doing bad stuff. Like, it sets you up for this unbelievable failure, because what happens at day 76? What happens at day 78? What happens at day 80? Like, are you still that person? So I do that, and I have a little, I have reminders like all over the place.
Like sticky notes?
Like sticky notes, girl, like everywhere. Like, even I was literally valet parking my car this weekend, and the valet guy was like, "Oh my God, that's a nice note in your car." I was like, "Thank you." Aww. But like, I have like notes like in my car, like wherever I am, because my home is like, I've made it into my little sanctuary. So I'm okay if I'm in my confines of my home, because I've made it a sanctuary. But I have sticky notes all over, because I feel like, for instance, in my home office, I have sticky notes everywhere, because it's like, okay, Crystal, you don't have to prove a point. Like, I literally have that sticker right there. There's no points to prove. Like, so it's just a reminder, like, when I'm in this workspace, like, okay, Crystal, you have nothing to prove. And so, like, whatever behavior I think that may be toxic in a certain space, when I'm in my bathroom, it's some of it is very derogatory, I shouldn't say, but it was just like, you a bad beat, right? So like, reminding myself, like, Crystal Denise Hadnott, girl. Like, so it's like all these like hype notes that I have on my mirror in my bathroom, just to remind myself when I wake up in the morning, like, I am that girl. Because when I first wake up, honestly, I don't feel like that girl.
Yeah. At all. Yeah. A lot of times.
Yeah, so it's really about also being kind and give yourself grace, but give yourself reminders. We do it for our phones all the time, for our hair appointment, our nail appointments. You get reminders, right? You get notifications. Like, you have to build that into your regular life with the things that you want to do. So maybe you need to set a notification for, like, taking a break, taking a rest, like, really be mindful of that. And I'm very particular, because we get really good at one or two things when it comes to health and wellness or rest, because I tell people rest has different layers. Like there's physical rest, there's emotional rest, there's social rest. And so really I take the 8 dimensions of wellness and I break it down and make sure that if I say I'm going to be like intellectual wellness, like if I'm going to be well intellectually, what am I doing to recover and rest? Because I like to read and listen to podcasts. I'm always taking in information, but when do I allow my brain to be at rest? So really being intentional about adding on these rest pieces as it relates to like emotions. Like I deal with it. I'm gonna have a highly emotional job that I'm fully invested in with the people that I work with. So what do I do for emotional rest where I'm just allowing myself to be and not do? So same thing, physical fitness, nutrition. So all the different 8 dimensions, spiritual, occupational, like when are you, environmental, financial, like when are you also giving yourself rest as you're also building? Because we do really well at like building a nutrition plan, building an exercise plan. But when you're building that exercise plan, do you also make sure that you're putting recovery and rest in that?
Right.
Same thing. So just making sure that we're very intentional about all types of rest, just like we are when it comes to our wellness.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that one thing that, as we're thinking about this rest aspect is the why, and I don't know if people really understand why it's so important. I think people are like, oh yeah, it's nice to recover. Yeah, it's nice to get some rest. And when I talk to people about it, they're like, oh, I don't have that luxury, or yeah, it must be nice, and I just really want to start to dig a little bit deeper into why this is important. Because when we are just attacking, there really isn't a chance to understand what's going on in your life, to look at it from different angles, because we're too busy in the weeds, if that makes sense. And I really want people to understand that when you come to a place of rest, when you come to a place of relaxation, then then the things in your life start to take on different perspective. And we don't necessarily have to push as hard because we allow space for things to happen for us. And I don't know if this resonates with you, but I really would love to get your take on why that rest is important, because it's not just about not burning out. It's not just about not overextending yourself. There is also movement. There's also growth. There's also miracles in some cases in that rest period. So I would love to understand your why behind why you encourage people to take those rest.
One, because if you don't do it, it will do it for you.
That part.
Like either you're gonna do it on purpose, or you would be forced into that state. But I always try to tell people, I use the analogy all the time. Think of a high performance car, because I consider myself a high performance person. A high performance car, for instance, you can't put regular unleaded gas in it. You got to put a higher octane level for it to perform. But also that, like a Formula One car, a race car, it's designed for speed. It's designed for agility. It's designed for precision. But no matter how advanced that engine is, it can't run endlessly. Most of the time, high performance cars require a higher amount of rest. Like you can't drive a Porsche, a Corvette, like you drive a Ford every day, all day long mileage. It doesn't work that way. So you have to think of yourself, if you're going to consider yourself a person of performance, you're going to need to take rest. Because, even like Formula One, go back to Formula One. You notice that every so often it has to make a pit stop.
Yeah.
To refuel, change the cars, check the systems. Same thing with yourself. You got to do a pit stop, refuel. Change your tires, maybe check your systems, see where you are, make sure you're still in alignment. Like you have to still do those things for yourself. You can't skip those stops, because even the best car eventually will overheat. It'll wear down, it'll break. So people are the same way. We're driven, we run at these high level of speeds, and we pride ourselves on the output of that we may have. But we have to also create our own version of a pit stop. And for me, that's always rest, recovery, and stillness, because we'll burn out. Every system in your body, brain, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, will begin to wear and tear if you don't provide it with rest. So take the pit stop.
That's so good. The car analogy, especially the high performance car analogy, is so good because the wear and tear is actually what takes us out. And this has been sort of my experience, what actually really initiated and accelerated my journey as in my work was seeing my father, unexpectedly die. Seeing my mom, a few months after that go on her own, journey of not just attempting suicide, but then having, challenges with strokes. And then it turns out it was a lot happening in her brain that hadn't had a chance to rest that really contributed to now a little bit of what she's going through now with dementia. And so I think that their journey as doctors and seeing them just overextend themselves, overwork themselves, and never take a day of rest until it was too late was just like my wake-up call, like my super red flags that, Aaron, if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to end up just like them. And so I think that so many people see people around them and just really accept, oh, it's in my genes, or it's, my people did this, and don't understand the power that we have to really shift and redirect our health by simply doing things differently.
Yeah, I tell people most of the time it's the behavior that's transferable and not scientific genes like your genetic makeup.
Yes.
Because that's even with food, because people's like, oh, it's just genetically I'm meant to be overweight. And I'm like, really? Genes is like maybe like 5% of your health outcome. The rest of it is behavioral.
Right.
And it's the same thing. Even like when you were talking about dementia, I talk about this a lot, particularly to people of color, because a lot of us operate with a vitamin D deficiency. And we know that a vitamin D deficiency is indirectly tied to dementia. But when the body is under stress, you can't absorb vitamin D.
Right.
So maybe we have to look at, let's look at the root cause. Like, we're always like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, even if you need science to put, like I just said at the beginning, like your body doesn't absorb nutrients when it's under stress. But the one nutrient that it releases is vitamin D when your body is under stress. And so maybe we think that, oh, I'm built to do this. No, we're not.
Right.
We're not built to do this. Like, it's just that we haven't done the assessment. When was the last time you did your lab work? Are these deficiencies tied to behavior? And have you really thought about what behaviors is tied to? Not necessarily not eating the right foods. Sometimes it's what we put our bodies through, because our bodies are like really self-ran engines that it starts pulling at everything it can to survive, because that's what it's meant to be, that maybe you've utilized too much of it. Like in my case, it was my adrenal glands. My adrenal glands just got shot. That's what was the real cause. Now, that's not what the doctor said of my autoimmune. But if I really look at my lifestyle and seeing how I put my adrenal glands into overload, which will cause me to be in hyperthyroidism, which led to Graves' disease to begin with. Maybe this girl that was super healthy, running, ate all the right things, how did she end up with an autoimmune disease? Maybe it was behavior, stressing the body out. So, sometimes we really have to, we don't really look at like, we try to place a label like, oh, that's just how it is, or that's just how it's going to be, or I'm going to have high blood pressure and that's just how it is. I'm like, well, maybe if we change our behaviors or really deal with our responses, because I know growing up for me, like I was taught that you were not supposed, basically not airing your dirty laundry. Like, although it may be a mess at the house, like you show up like presentable. You show up like nothing's wrong. Yeah. Everything is good. You don't show any emotions. Like, Life could be falling apart. You go
Yes.
outside, you step out this house, you're going to be dressed the part, look the part, put the mask on, the costume. And if you adopt that behavior into adulthood, because that's what you were taught as a child, it becomes detrimental. And and it does lead to a whole host of issues that can come up later. And
Yes.
so I tell people, be mindful of that. Like, do you want to be okay today? Or do you want to be okay long term?
That part.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad we went here because I was trying to figure out how I was going to slip all this stuff in there. But talking about this silence, because trauma lives in silence. And this is something that is very widespread, particularly in communities of color, is staying silent. Come on now. Don't snitch. All the kinds of, how do we even call these? Like, almost like fear tactics to keep us in silence around things going on that are really traumatic in our lives. People getting murdered, going to prison, touching on us, abusing us. Don't snitch. Like this essentially is a mantra almost, and particularly in Black communities. And it has to stop. And so we have to be able to speak our truth, because if we don't speak our truth, then of course, like we mentioned before, it creates that stress.
Yeah.
We have to release that which is in our being. And to be, to that point, like, well, I'm going through a hell of a stressful situation in that just 2 days ago, the custody of my child, for which I had managing conservatorship, essentially like full custody, got flipped. So just yesterday, I had to take my 5-year-old son on the first day of kindergarten to the courthouse to go to his dad. And while we were in court, they were trying to use my podcast and what I say in my seminars as evidence of my insanity. Saying that I believe that I'm a goddess and I create my own reality is insane. And that I'm against the system and against vaccinations, and didn't even understand why. Didn't even understand how a vaccination worked. And so this is why I do what I do, because we all are going through incredibly traumatic situations and we are silent about them. Not only are we silent about them, but then we're scared to even seek help.
Yeah.
For fear of being exposed, for fear of being punished.
Yeah.
And I had to face my fears on Tuesday and, almost went to jail. Like I was in handcuffs in court because I was trying to go about the court process and proceedings in a different way that the judge thought was in contempt of the court. We can talk about that another time. But it was just a very traumatic situation, period. To be able to do something as simple as protect my son's safety, which I believe is still at risk in his dad's custody.
Yeah.
And so many people are going through this thing. That's why I'm going through this, is because I'm meant to understand what so many people are going through and have been through. And haven't talked about it, are too scared to talk about it for fear of they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
For fear people are going to think something about them.
Yeah. Or we were taught to, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, it's not that bad. No, it's bad.
It's really bad.
It's bad. Like, but I always tell people, the body keeps score.
Period.
Even when the mind decides to move on or you want to stay silent, the body remembers. When we think that we're silencing trauma or hiding our dirty laundry or playing along to get along, like, all these crazy things that we were taught in our childhoods that we bought into adulthood, we think that we're silencing them, but that silencing once can be deafening.
Yes.
And it shows up. It shows up in tension. It shows up fatigue that you can't sleep off. Unexplained gut issues. Just like it starts to manifest in different ways.
Absolutely.
Even manifesting in our own craziness.
That
Because
part.
then when you think about it, like, so you're saying I'm crazy because I believe in my own reality that I can build? Like let's walk this through. So
Yeah.
it even manifests in like, like literally we will run ourselves crazy trying to hide or cover or keep things in or because that's what we were taught in society to do.
Yeah.
And the crazy part about it is that that's what makes us crazy. That's what makes
Yes.
us sick. That's
Yes.
what makes us ill. Um, and the body speaks when the mouth don't.
That part.
Yeah, you
That
can't
part.
ignore it. It gets louder and louder. Not always in words, but in symptoms, stress patterns that are repeated, until finally you listen to it.
That part.
And when I say patterns that are repeated, and that's just like, it could be disruption of the home. Like these are just repeated patterns because we hold on to these truths that are not really truths, right? Like, like you take it on to the next generation and it just manifests even deeper in the next generation because we done held on to this lineage of untruth or
Yes.
this lineage of trauma, this
Yes.
lineage of pain, hiding stories, not really I mean, I tell people a simple way to look at it is like, you go to the doctor and you be like, oh no, I don't know my family health history because, we didn't talk about what Big Mama died from. Like crazy stuff like that. Like and so you don't even know how to handle your own body because things that we never shared or talked about. I was just telling a girl the other day, although my mom passed away when I was 33 unexpectedly, I was like, I never remember her talking about the stuff that my body is going through now with this perimenopause and menopause. Like,
Yeah.
just like simple stuff that we don't even talk about because we think it's taboo. But I'm like, no, we need to know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to know about you talking about these summers, like these personal summers. I need to know the real stuff that happens, like your emotional mood swings, like the stuff that you didn't want to talk about, the irritability, like things that if we knew better, we can manage better.
Yes.
So I just think silencing trauma, silencing certain things, eventually those things get really, really loud and our body
Hmm.
keeps score. And if we keep that in mind, I don't think we will be so silent about things that's going on or even not believing in our own truths because you've adopted what somebody else told you is your truth, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's the
And
biggest
I want
one.
to ask you
In our
about that
community.
specifically because you mentioned that when you got diagnosed with Graves' disease, that it was just that.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to the medical community because obviously you've had to work very closely with them. I grew up in the medical community. I certainly have a lot of respect for doctors and the information they have to offer. But ultimately, you had to know yourself and what was happening within you in terms of, you talked about like hormonal things
Mhm.
and all that. So I really want you to start to uncover like when you got that diagnosis, what
Mhm.
was that relationship like with your doctor? And then how did you start to turn inwardly and be like, what can I do for myself? And as you did that, how do you, I know it's a lot of questions, but
Oh
how would you
no.
recommend to other people, when they are interacting with the medical community, how they can use that information, take in that advice, but not take it as a blanket truth and do nothing with it?
You just said it. You are the author of your own reality, right? And I'm going somewhere with this. Only because what happened is I got a diagnosis after I'm gonna be honest with you. It was like several years of me telling them something's wrong with my body, and they're like, "Oh no, you're healthy. Your labs are good. You're a healthy weight. You eat right. You exercise." I had all these reasons of why I'm okay. Um, these are just perimenopause symptoms you're experiencing.
Interesting.
And so I was like, no, I feel like something's wrong with my body. So several doctors later, several years into it, finally get a diagnosis. And that was it. They were just like, well, you can either have radioactive iodine therapy, or we can do a complete ablation and get rid of your thyroid, and we're going to put you on hormone replacement drugs for the rest of your life.
Oh my
But there's no cure for the disease. This is just helping your symptoms. I was like, yeah, nah, I'm okay. I don't want to do neither one of those. I was like, because if you're telling me you want me to go through all of this evasive work, knowing that there's no cure for the disease, it's only maybe going to deal with symptoms of the disease, but you don't know the real outcome. I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I need to find out what the root cause, like, because my first question was like, how did I get here? Like, what causes this? And no one can answer those questions. And so I turned and did my own research. I began to write my own story by just like, okay, they went to school. I'm about to go to school. I'm reading the medical journals. I'm reading books. I'm learning about how the body processes things, how the body intakes things. And I literally created my own medical protocol. I told them that I will come in and get checked every 60 to 90 days to check my levels to make sure that I was not doing anything that was harmful to my body. And if it got to the point where it was like a life or death situation, I would then follow the protocol. But I would like to try this alternative method first and try to deal with the root cause versus handling the symptoms if there's no cure for this disease. And that's what I did. And so it was literally championing my own self and learning my own body, because I was like, nobody knows your body like you do. And really just understanding like, okay, Crystal, what have you been doing these last several years? Like, what was different? Like, and that's when I came up. I was like in the medical journal reading about understanding like, okay, what's happening when your body go into hyperthyroidism, understanding why your body is building up this inflammation. And that's when I got to the point of like, oh, this is all just stress. You know, like, oh, I was overinflamed because I was overstressed. My adrenal glands could no longer function. I was hyperthyroid because my body was trying to catch up with the level of stress and deal with it. And it just crashed and burned in that process. And so if that's the root cause, let me deal with those issues first. Like, how can I get myself out of this stress state? 1, 2, you know, what can I do to not heal parts of my body through food, through movement and activity? And that's when I got into like, okay, how do I rewrite what my life looked like? And that was Graves was my aha. Like, okay, I can't keep living like this.
Yes.
This does not feel good. It does not, I'm not trying to die like this. It's like, they can be like, oh, that girl was a hard worker. You know, that's not what I want my obituary to be.
I know.
You know, like, oh, she had a lot of jobs, you know.
A lot of degrees.
Like, a lot of degrees, and ran a bunch of marathons. Like, I do not want that to be my life story. And so I literally, that was my relationship. And that's what I did. I went back every 60, 90 days. My levels were checked, making sure that I was stabilizing. And eventually, without any medical intervention, I was able to stabilize my levels. And I actually, one endocrinologist was like, can you write down what you did in case any other patients would be interested in the methods that you use? That's not a life or death straight, or what they call a thyroid storm, like where you're about to die basically. And so and I have created like a whole like nutrition protocol for people who want to try this route if they're not in such an aggressive state, and just try an alternative method, which was a lot of it honestly was Eastern medicine.
Yeah. And that makes perfect sense. And that's so beautiful that you were able to inspire medical professionals through your own research and your own journey. So it was more of a co-creation of care versus just an acceptance of fate.
Yeah.
And so I know we're coming up on time. I really would love for you to share with our listeners more about how this journey has informed what you do now and how you support other people and how they can find you in that.
Oh, yes. So this has been, I tell people my life story, but also my life work now.
Yeah.
I really love it. It's become like this full circle moment. Today, I get to coach purpose-driven professionals and lead and leading like these transformational wellness day experiences and wellness retreats. I also consult organizations that are changing the world to do things in a more healthier way. I call it grow with grace. Like, how can we get you to grow and develop and, get more money? Or if you're an individual, how can you elevate your life, but do it with grace? And so now that I'm loving that I'm able to do this work and create a whole, like I said, framework around it called Sustainable Well. And it's a sustainable well, and it's all about like, how do you live life well? How do you love well? How do you work out well? How do you do your actual work well? Just like, how do you do all this but do it well?
Yes.
And so that's what I'm doing. And
Love it.
my journey isn't just about, I tell people, career wins or physical endurance. It's about learning that success means nothing if you lose yourself chasing it.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. Like, if you're chasing it, that's not success. And now I'm here just to remind people, as well as myself at times, that you can be audacious, you can be ambitious, and at peace at the same time.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that so much. And how do they find you?
And they can find me on www.crystalhadnott.com. My website and all social media channels is Crystal Hadnott, just my first and last name.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Crystal, for being on the show, for sharing your journey, and also really getting real about how we can empower ourselves to be healthier, to be happier, and to be at peace, and to be well, to your point.
Be well.
And I want to encourage everyone to certainly continue to tune in to the Meta Business Millennial podcast. You can follow me at I am Erin Patton across social media, or also check out more of my resources at www.erinpatton.com. In the meantime, I wish you all much love and light. Peace. Did you really love this episode of the Meta Business Millennial podcast? Well, I am honored, and I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends, because your feedback allows us to co-create more enlightened conversations. And if you're interested in growing your soul now, head over to my website, erinpatton.com, to find all the show notes, links, and free resources to get your energy activated today. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.